Why am I getting the letter?
What do they call it? Wing on the back?
You have?
Yeah, it's a Toyota Corolla. Wing pulls the back end on.
Oh, a spoiler. Isn't that what those are?
Yeah.
You have a souped up Toyota Corolla.
No.
My first car that I actually bought was a Toyota Corolla. It was the best car.
This is my mother.
We had one in Hawaii, but we gave it to my sister when we left, because she had this very scary car. I'm like, let's just give it to her. And
That's the kind of car.
And now we miss
It just
the
works.
mileage, it's so much better.
Right. It just works. It's great.
Well, and
The plastic's all falling off from around the doors and stuff. I don't really care.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still have like these.
Yeah, I mean,
It's squishy.
Are you here for the element, the recreation element?
Yeah.
Oh.
And the transportation.
Oh, yeah.
All the elements.
You see the speed limit sign over the weekend?
Yes. Yes.
We did it for.
Yes, like that.
We must have had.
Yeah.
We did it for-
Oh,
I was thinking
Yeah.
how.
The sign shop I talked to today.
Great.
So it should be good by,
Before Big C's really go
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
yeah, it's really fast. They've got excellent. So,
Oh, sweet.
there's a free volunteer day.
Oh, that's Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, of course, might get a few of them.
Oh, that's great.
It used to be a land.
Yeah, oh, we can put them to work doing.
Told me
And
today.
anything else that's funny, like.
Yeah.
No.
Yep, makes sense.
There are people.
And I said, I get back to you.
Hey, good. Did that digital copy work for you?
Yes. Sure, and pineapple and,
I know, and so was Peter.
Hello, Peter, welcome.
I went to
Oh, Pete, sorry. Hello, Pete.
That's true. My mom does call me Peter.
Yeah, we won't do that to you. Well, we're all here, so, see, already all the names are gone. Are you both ready?
Ready.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna call this meeting to order, and I am gonna open the meeting as mayor, simply because we have not, as part of our agenda tonight, we have to determine officers. So in the absence of a chair, I will serve as the temporary chair to get us started. So if we could start with roll call.
Commissioner Bruner? Here. Commissioner Howard?
Here.
Commissioner McCarthy? Here. Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Watson?
Here.
Yeah.
So our next order of business is the appointment of officers, but I wanted to preface it with, Stefan, if you're ready to read out what came from Melinda, the
Yeah,
attorney.
so we have a legal opinion, a written legal opinion that differs from what the verbal opinion was of our previous attorney. So this is coming from our interim town attorney. She says that the selection of officers has to be from the non-ex officio members, meaning not the trustees that are appointed to the plan commission, must be one of the three non-ex officio members. So that's for Peter, Suzanne, and Lynn.
All right, go with that in,
well, I believe the previous opinion was a written opinion. No, it's right there
here. Oh, I didn't see this.
from Kelly PC. And I'm not arguing the wisdom of the opinion, but I'm just very curious and concerned because here we've got absolutely diametrically opposed opinions from the same firm, which, I mean, for one thing, it says at best they're 50-50, but exactly what is she basing this on? You read her opinion?
Yeah, she is basing this opinion on CRS section 32 or 3123-2034 provides notwithstanding any provisions of subsections 1 and 3 of this section, the contrary, the governing body of each municipality may provide by ordinance for the size, membership designation of alternate membership, terms of membership, removal of members pursuant to subsection 3 of this section, filling of vacancies of the commission. That subsection doesn't specifically authorize the town to adopt different rules regarding the chair. So I believe that the town should assume that CRS section 3123-204, which requires the chair to be elected among the non-ex officio members, applies. That said, I'm aware of no reported case law addressing this issue. So certainly an argument to the contrary can be made. So she's saying that she doesn't know any case law, but she's saying following Colorado by statute.
And the problem is our code is silent on that.
Correct.
Well, it's not.
No, it doesn't. How does it read? I
Well,
don't have it in front
the
of me.
state statute says it can't be ex officio,
That's right,
and the town statute says from the members.
right.
I mean, that's not
Plain text,
silent.
all of whom must be residents of the town, including 2 elected members consisting of the mayor and 1 member of the board of trustees. And 1 member of the board of trustees appointed by mayor. The commission shall elect its chair from among its membership and 3. Well, that's what I'm saying,
But it's not silent.
but there is no reference to ex officio
Right,
in here, as
exactly.
is in the statute. So
So are we gonna change our ordinance
I would say we have to at some point.
if that's the way we're going?
So I asked another question, right? Because I said, hey, we had differing opinions now from 2 different attorneys.
Same attorney.
It was 2 different.
Same firm.
Same
The
firm.
attorney is Kelly PC.
No, our attorney was Nick Cotton Baez, and now our current interim town attorney is Melinda Coley. Same firm.
Okay.
Same firm, but 2 different attorneys. So I asked the question, said, we now have 2 different opinions. What
What do we do?
do? And this was the response. Nothing in the statutes or town code prohibits the planning commission from appointing this was for deputy clerk as secretary. Do you know if the planning commission has ever adopted separate rules of procedure? I don't see anything in our system, but you might want to check to see if those rules specify who will serve the secretary. So she's saying that you can't appoint the deputy clerk to be the secretary since he's doing minutes anyway. The second one was the mayor and trustee cannot serve as the chair. This is prohibited by CRS section 3123-204, which states the commission shall elect its chairman from among the non-ex officio members. Also, per section 2640 of the town code, it looks like the officers serve a term of 2 years. Has the current chair already served 2 years? That was her question back to us. Well, this current chair is the outgoing mayor, so it doesn't apply. We have to do this anyway. So that's her opinion on both secretary for that position, but then also the chair cannot be an ex officio member, according to her.
Okay, so then my last question is, if that's the way it is, does that invalidate what happened when the wrong person was the chair for the last 2 years?
I mean, that's a legal opinion, but I would say no. There were public hearings. Any decision that was made also went to the board of trustees for final approval. It was recommended and approved, so I'd say those decisions stand.
Okay.
And I would add that the chair can vote,
Oh, absolutely.
you know, so it
Absolutely.
didn't matter. I
Absolutely.
mean, it's sort of a,
Yeah.
you know, it's not as if the mayor, as in the situation where the mayor can't vote as a trustee during a regular meeting. So
Okay,
I'm a little
I just wanted
bit,
to kind of try to air that a little bit.
I'm troubled by the fact that we can have an attorney giving us an opinion about this. And I questioned it. At the time, I was given this by the staff. They dug up the original ordinance from 2003, and they gave me the citizens' letter protesting, and they gave me Nick's written opinion. And I had no recourse. There was nothing I could do as a planning commission member to address this, aside from like being a real pain in the butt. And so it's like, how can this be happening?
Well, I would suggest as a
And how can
citizen,
we keep this
Yeah.
from not?
right, but I would suggest just as a citizen, when something like that happens, I would go to a trustee and
This
ask the
is,
question.
this is Karen Boggs.
Right,
letter to
right,
the
but you as a
trustees. Yeah,
planning commissioner, I would go to the chairperson, who in this case was the mayor.
well, I did, and
Right.
she was adamant that she was the chair.
Then I would maybe go to another trustee and ask, you know.
Well, I talked to you about
Oh,
it. That's
yeah.
okay.
Right, and
We'll put it aside and hopefully we can keep these things from happening again.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
so, attorneys give different opinions all the time, that's why there's attorneys. And so this interim town attorney is taking the stand that if she would have to defend this action in court, this is her decision. The previous attorney was taking that same thing. If he had to defend it in court, that was his position for any sort of differing opinions. And so that's kind of where we're at. We may, when we choose a new attorney, there may be a completely different opinion. Hey, it may even, I'm just saying, it may happen. And there may be with that different opinion, a change to our ordinance as well. So, and those are things that we just, yes, town attorney, it's legal.
So to me, it just points out that the attorney's advice is just that, it's advice.
Correct.
And if it was a ruling of some sort that was binding, we wouldn't be here. They just have an attorney do it. So,
There's some discretionary.
Anyway.
yeah, I think it's just a really good case to bear in mind, you know. Every time somebody goes to court, one of the attorneys was wrong. So.
That's why there's attorneys.
Anyway,
So, well, with that in mind, you all have traditionally had a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. So the comment was made, since our paid staff person, our deputy clerk has been doing the minutes. I know Commissioner Howe was the secretary, but you weren't required to do anything.
Right.
So it seems,
weird.
so just from a practical standpoint, it would make sense to have our deputy clerk be the secretary. I'm just throwing that out there for consideration. But really what needs to, between the three members who are not ex officio, Commissioner Howe, Commissioner McCarthy, and Commissioner Watson, of the three of you, we all can talk about who wants to be chair. Because I, as the mayor, I have no authority to choose the chair.
You're not a voting, as a voting
So you-
member.
you
No, I
can't serve
can, I
as
can
the chair.
vote, I
You
can't
can't
serve,
serve.
but I'm also not appointing the chair.
Right, yeah.
Like I appointed the members.
Oh,
of
yeah,
the
yeah.
Planning
Well,
commission,
like-
so I just want to make that distinction. I can vote on the chair, but I'm not appointing. So
Would you like
this-
to draw
this is
straws?
Very democratic.
Well, I would be
Cut
chair.
cards?
If someone wants to make a motion, I would put my hat in the ring for that.
And,
I'll make a motion. For you to be the chair.
okay. So please make your motion, so we can second. Go ahead, if you would, Pete, if you would repeat your motion,
I nominate Susan
Suzanne Watson.
Watson to be chair.
okay?
Second, if it's necessary.
You got the second, all right? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Well, you need to say it. Or all opposed, all in favor? Aye.
Oh, aye.
Any opposed?
I was silent
I mean,
too.
I said aye once. and-
I didn't hear. Lynn, did you say aye?
I said aye.
I'm sorry, didn't hear. Okay, so it's unanimous. So with that, now
So,
I turn it over to you
okay,
to discuss a vice chair.
so,
Here it is. We'll go through this together since we're both doing this.
yeah, so the vice chair fills in the absence of the chair. Basically, that's what we're looking at.
Kind of like a pro tem sort of
It's like a mayor
situation.
pro tem. Would someone like to nominate someone, or is anybody interested? They'd just like to put their name forward.
I'll put my hat in the ring. For vice chair.
And I'm the chair, can I
Yes.
I think we made a motion, you can make a
I can make
motion.
a motion. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Lynn Howe as the vice chair of the planning commission.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, so the next order of business will
And
be
hang on. I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, yeah,
That
yeah.
we appoint
officers.
Ruben Santiago, our deputy clerk, as secretary.
I just have a question. Okay.
Oh, about that
Yeah.
motion.
Is that gonna burden Ruben more? I mean, he has a lot to do.
This is a routine part of his normal duties.
Okay. Okay,
One thing I wanted to say, there was one time where I did have to be secretary, and it made it really difficult to listen to what was going on and try to make a decision. So I was really relieved when it went to Ruben.
okay.
Can I just have, what is the duties to transcribe the meeting notes and then summarize them?
Yeah, what is here on the
That's what it's
agenda?
been.
The meeting minutes that we have in this agenda packet were compiled by Ruben.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So I just have a question, technically. The chair of the planning commission, the vice, the sole duty is basically to run the meeting, correct? And run the hearings, that's my understanding.
I turned to Stefan on that, just, I
Okay,
don't know the answer to that.
What was the question?
the duty of the chair is to run the meeting, run the hearings. I was just curious about how agendas get set on the planning commission.
That's,
Is that something that we have to decide or just, it's just kind of organic?
we don't set agenda items.
Yeah.
Right, so this is,
No, I just was wondering statutorily or typically.
I would make a motion that the chair sets the agenda.
Oh, that has to be go-to person, you're saying. Okay. Does that have to be a motion? Or is it just?
I think we should talk about what rules govern the way we work. Okay, and Robert's Rules of Order is a good idea, but it can be very cumbersome, especially when it's small. And there's a solution in Robert's Rules for that. It's procedures for small. And it simplifies a lot. It says members are not required to obtain the floor before making motions. We can kind of be conversational and you can make a motion. The motions do not need to be seconded. And if they're, the equivalent of not seconding the motion is everybody votes no. It saves time there. There's no limit on the number of times that you can speak on a question, and motions to close or limit debate generally are not permitted. Informal discussion of a subject is permissible while a motion is pending. The chairman need not rise to put a question to vote. Chairman can speak in discussion without rising, leaving the chair. So it's just a simplified version of Robert's Rules. And, it's not in this book, but it's in Robert's Rules of Order. And we can copy it off and everybody can have a copy. And it just makes it a lot simpler to do business.
I am wondering, because this is a deliberative body that does decision-making, I'd like to know an attorney's opinion if it's all right to go with that sort of approach with a small board. But is that a small board that's a 501c3 or a quasi judicial board? That's the only thing.
Right.
So Stefan, if we could put, that's how I feel. I'd like an attorney's
That's a
opinion.
good point. And I think perhaps there's a split to maybe kind of solution that a lot of what we do is not quasi judicial. And if it's not quasi judicial, we could be a little more informal, but if there is a quasi judicial aspect to it, we would try to revert to as best we can.
But we are statutorily we are statutorily, we have been statutorily created.
Uh-huh.
That's my concern about getting too informal. That's all.
Well,
Yeah.
obviously, there's scripts. When there's a hearing, there's a script and there's a process that we have to follow. Yeah, so, oh, good, thank you. So there's a degree of formality there, yeah.
So I'm not against it, but I would personally like to have an attorney say whether that is reasonable for what, we're a statutorily created body.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Attorneys.
So we're gonna try to go with full Robert's rules until,
No, we don't have to go with full Robert's rules.
Okay.
Thank you.
What are Robert's rules, sorry, in context?
It's a very kind of a formalized way of going through a meeting, and it's kind of designed to keep everybody with an equal voice, not have one person dominating discussions of, making sure people all have a chance to. Anyway, it's pretty, it's a pretty big book, actually.
We'll
And-
ask our clerk to visit with you. I didn't know what kind of prep there is for you coming to this
Yeah.
commission meeting tonight. But Stefan, I think it'd be appropriate to ask the clerk to visit with you on Robert's rules, because you'll see those reflected in the meeting minutes. That's why you have to have a formal motion as part of Robert's rule, and somebody has to be second. And it all has to be recorded, including the votes.
So, in the town code, the Board of Trustees has adopted Robert's Rules of Order, for meetings. The planning commission has not. I mean, we could make a resolution, I'd imagine.
Madam Chair, if I may, so the authority from the planning commission was designated from the Board of Trustees. And so if you're gonna change any sort of rules of decorum, that certainly should be watched to the Board of Trustees before it would be adopted in the planning commission. Because we do have a section of code that discusses the planning commission, how it was created, its purpose, membership terms, appointment of officers, or offices and duties, that is codified, set by Peonia Municipal Code. And so if you're gonna change anything within that, certainly should go to the Board of Trustees for consideration.
Okay, so we have the secretary, the vice chair, and the chair. Are we ready to move on to the approval of the agenda? Do you need a copy?
Madam Chair, there was,
Do we have a?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Watson, there was no vote taken on,
Vice Chair.
for vice chair.
Oh, wait, yeah, we did,
Yes.
but we could redo it. There was.
it was unanimous.
Unanimous for Peter. Do we have an extra copy for Peter?
Is there a copy at the back table? Is there a copy of this at the back table? Thank you.
We do have it.
You have it, okay, good.
Oh, wait, Peter, I have one right here, actually. I have two.
There's one on the table. This is, yep.
Okay. Great. Okay, so let's move on. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the approval of minutes. These are the minutes from April 3rd, the last planning commission meeting. I don't know if you've had a chance to look through them. Does anybody have a motion to make the
Have a comment.
minutes? Okay,
I just have one comment for a correction, and it's on page 7 of the agenda packet. I believe it's page 4 of the meeting minutes, and we're not the Panamanian Municipal Code. That looks like spell check was not our friend. Instead of Paonia. It's in the last full paragraph. Page 7 of the agenda packet.
Noted.
okay, so that's the only correction you have? You have another one?
I have a comment on these minutes.
Did we want to make a motion first and then do the discussion or?
We're going by Robert's rules, I guess, so.
Robert's rules, okay. Good. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda? I mean, the minutes, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to accept the Minutes from,
April 3rd.
sorry,
April 3rd.
what was it, April 5th?
April 3rd.
Third.
And do we
Before
have?
that motion is finished, can I have you amend it to say approve the minutes from April 3rd instead of accept?
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, now we can have some discussion.
Since we're going by Robert's Rules of Order, Robert's Rules of Order says, not only is it not necessary to summarize matters discussed at a meeting in the minutes of the meeting, it is improper to do so. Minutes are a record of what was done at the meeting, not a record of what was said. And I'm not going to read a whole lot more, but I think this is a mistake that the town of Paonia has been making for years. And I think we should stop it here. It's to be a list of motions made, who made them, and how the vote went. And that's about it.
I'd like to ask a question about that. I don't know if that would pertain to a public hearing. And that again is, I don't know the answer to that question, but a public hearing may rise to a different level
It may well.
in Robert's Rules of Order.
It's a quasi judicial, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, it's a quasi judicial hearing. It's not simply just taking the advice, it's actually making a ruling, it's a recommendation.
Right, and yeah. But generally, the minutes are overdone here. The problem with doing that is that it's an interpretation of what was said and what happened. And it's necessarily not going to be that accurate. So I'm not gonna stop the meeting over this, but I wanna point that out. And there'll be more discussion about
Yeah, let's move on. We can see how it goes
Yeah.
in the future here. When we look at our minutes and play it by ear. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
it. Nay.
So next on the agenda is actions and presentations. Our first presentation is a public hearing. This is a presentation only and no action will be taken on this item. Do you need one of these? I think
No,
I-
I'm sorry. I was handed
Oh, I'm
these.
sorry.
No, and you didn't have time.
Yeah,
So is the paper that the chair has in front of her what needs to be stated prior to the opening of this portion of this meeting?
yeah, you have to.
Okay, so she needs to read everything here. I thought I heard somebody say they had something different than this one. Seven, you're good with this one. Okay.
That was what was handed to me.
Not see.
Okay, so we're beginning with the comprehensive plan, transportation, parks and recreation trails and urban forest. This first public hearing pertains to that. I will now open the public hearing on the draft element portion of the comprehensive plan, transportation, parks, recreation and trails and urban forest. The purpose of the hearing is to provide a public forum for all interested parties who wish to comment on the applications before the planning commission. The procedure for the public hearing will be as follows. First, there will be a presentation by Phoenix Rising Resources, and that's you, Marissa, is that correct? Are you the only?
And Keller is.
Oh, Keller's on Keller's on the screen. After this presentation, we will allow members of the public to speak for up to 5 minutes. All testimony must be presented at the lectern after you give your full name and address, and I swear you in. There are not very many people here, so I'm just like, after receiving public comments, we will allow Phoenix Rising Resources and town staff an opportunity to respond and answer any questions raised by the public comments. I will then turn the matter over to the planning commission, and the commissioners may ask questions of anyone who testified. We generally will not ask questions during presentations. Just to not distract from the presentation. Finally, I will close the public hearing. The period to submit written comments to the town will end May 15th, 2024, and public hearings are recorded for public record. So do we have proper notification that the record has been, town clerk confirms for the record that public notice has been provided as required? Has the notice been required, been provided as required? Is that, Ruben, do you know?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, applicants, Marissa and Keller Rhodes, would you like to make your presentation?
Good evening. I'm Marissa Momarts, one of the consultant team working on the comprehensive plan. We are so excited to have the final elements to share with you tonight. Transportation, parks, recreation, and trails, and then trees or urban forests, which is actually just a component of the infrastructure element that was presented a couple months ago. I'll be presenting the Parks, Rec, and Trails element last, and we're going to start with Keller Rose on Zoom, doing the transportation element, and I can still do the clicker for you, Keller Rose.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As you know, this is the final presentation for the comprehensive plan for the elements. We will go through our remaining events at the end of this presentation, but today, for the benefit of the public and the Planning Commission, we wanted to review these elements as part of this public session. One of the elements that was added, the primary one, at the request of Administrator Nguyen and supportive of, we hope, the future of transportation in Paonia. So we're going to start with this element, and it's, again, this is a draft review. My recommendation to you is to write down any notes as we go along, and then we will have questions after each element is presented, and of course, questions at the end. And then just a gentle reminder to you all, we will not be accepting any further comments after May 13th. So please send us your comments before then. Next slide, please. This is a rather long vision, but again, we created these visions and values with the community in a two-step process. I'm going to read it out loud for you. Paonia's streets and sidewalks are well-maintained, safe, and comfortable thoroughfares for multiple modes of transport, and they support a rural and easy-paced quality of life for residents. There are clear and differentiated routes for commercial and pass-through traffic, and pedestrian and bicycle traffic provide safety and convenience. Paonia residents can access key facilities and services without owning or operating a motorized vehicle. Transportation stakeholders understand and are responsive to the transportation needs of our community. Next slide, please. Marissa, can you move to the next slide, please?
Right, maybe I'm pointing the wrong.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, nope, one more back. There we go. Thank you. There's our new beautiful mural. So the values, the community values well-maintained streets and sidewalks that are safe with ample street tree presence. The community values mixed-use routes that are comfortable and safe for all members of our community. And the community values non-motorized routes and trails that are comfortable and safe for all members of the community. The community values thoroughfares and all new roads that accommodate both pedestrian and non-motorized transport and work with existing and new street trees. Next slide, please. So in the elements themselves, there is a background section. It's about a long paragraph. And then we have these community visions, values, and policies. As a reminder, these policies are then what will guide hopefully more specific projects, more specific legislation or rulemaking, or more specific planning efforts. So these policies, again, keep in mind, are high-level policies meant to guide further action on transportation. There's quite a few of them for the transportation section. We are having the DC consultants who have been working with the transportation working group take a look at this, and they will provide edits as well. So if they feel like we've overdone it, I'm sure they will let us know. If you feel like we've overdone it, let us know. I'm not going to read all the policies out loud. We've got 2 to 3 of them per slides. And I think what's important is to really understand how much people value all modes of transport in this community. And how much we are really wanting as a community to find specific routes where we focus on supporting that multimodal transport. Next slide. There again is this value that we did see as well, which was to have non-motorized routes and have those non-motorized routes be accessible for the mobility challenged and for children and wildlife. We actually did hear quite a bit about wildlife in this section with public comment and also in just looking at all the progress that's been made at the state level around supporting corridors and wildlife crossings. All right, so again, we have, everybody is aware of what the sidewalks are like in Paonia, so we don't need to get into that, but we really have made sure that the policy is to ensure that all sidewalk upgrades, that as they happen, include accessible on and off ramps at the curbside. We want to make sure to identify an in-line and incorporate the use of appropriate materials. We heard a lot about the interplay between trees, street trees, and urban trees and our sidewalks, and the kind of oftentimes dead-end discussion if concrete is our only material. So we want to make sure that there are many materials that are appropriate for sidewalks and trails and walkways that are both compliant with the law on ADA and work to support existing street trees and stormwater management. We also want to make sure, and we heard a little bit about how we need to make sure the parks and public places are accessible for folks who are maybe older, mobility challenged, or in some other way mobility challenged. As always, we want to enhance and encourage pedestrian access and walkability to the downtown historic core. This community cares a lot about our historic core, and this plan is very much focused on not only preserving it, but revitalizing it and supporting its continued growth. We want to make sure there are trails and non-motorized connectivity between key transportation corridors and properties. Right now we have kids often biking out along a road that has no bike lane to get to the soccer fields, baseball fields. There are a couple other examples of regular routes that children or folks may take for recreation, which just don't have safe passage insured or built in. And then, of course, we want to make sure that the access points to Highway 133 are planned correctly and safely, and that those also include a thought about non-motorized access as they are planned and redone. Next slide. Oh, it's interesting. It looks like we got out of order here. Oh, no, we went the wrong way. There we go. Okay, this is the last one on policies. Because we don't have public transportation, it was important to really make sure that any transportation actions are taken in coordination with regional stakeholders. We did think about the airport, and they are part of the Delta County Master Plan, but we wanted to make sure that we continued to work with them and supporting connectivity that they offer and can offer to other airports, and we're consistent in that with the county and also as an asset to our community and how that could be more of an asset to our community. And then the last one, in coordination with the Delta County Recreation Trails and Master Plan, wanted to make sure we proactively plan for and coordinate with stakeholders around conversations that have to do with rail to trails or rail to rail repurposing that can serve both members of the public and visitors. Next slide. This is a mock-up of a map that we did include a draft when we submitted, but this is a more recent update. And essentially what we are attempting to do here, incorporating the information that was from the walk survey that was recently conducted, the existing plans that are in place and potential future plans that have been made but never executed upon. We have attempted to outline some specific transportation corridors that exist in the town. This should not be taken as a plan. We don't necessarily plan to intend this map in the master plan because we know things will shift. But we did want you guys to be thinking about what's the larger frame we're talking about when we talk about, prioritizing a corridor that's for multimodal transport. Well, that you can take a look at 3rd Street. What does it mean when we're talking about access to parks? They're in purple there. The library is in pink. And then the school areas are in green. You can sort of see again where there is some desired public access along those red dotted lines. And then the green lines are the trails. You can also see those pink dotted lines that go out to the ball field and some green dotted lines that go down over the river and reach out to some of our economic zones that are just to the west of town. Again, this map will not be included in the official master plan, but we wanted you all to start thinking about what this might look like, and it will be included as a reference appendix. Next slide, please. Okay, this is where I'm going to pause and open up questions. This is both for the Planning Commission and for the public on this section.
Is this me or is this part of the presentation, or do you want me to take over as a chair right now, Helen?
I'm happy to just field any questions. Are there any questions from the Planning Commission?
You run the public hearing.
Okay, Rose, I have a question. I know you said the map is going to be not included, but it'll be in the appendix. There are a couple of corrections that need to be made on the map.
Sure.
And so I can submit those to you at a later date, but
That'd be
there's
great. And also, just so you know, we're not going to force you to include it. Even if you don't want it to be included in the appendix, we don't have to. It was just a way to visualize. We were asked to summarize a lot of different plans and pieces of plans that maybe were never officially adopted yet, or processes that were underway. And so I just asked our team to create the map so we could start to see all of those in one place.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, would love to take your suggestions. And if you would like it in the appendix, especially make sure that we make any corrections you might like. And I'm happy to have you draw on a printout of that, or we can just sit down and talk it over.
I have a point of order. Madam
Okay.
Chair,
Any other?
if this is a public hearing, why isn't the Planning Commission conducting this hearing? It seems to me that people should be recognized by the chair to speak for a public hearing.
I guess I'm a little confused if this is part of the presentation. Are we just allowing the presentation to happen? And we said there wasn't going to be comments during the presentation. So that's what's throwing me off a little bit.
I don't know. Did we say that? Because they're built in. In the past,
Yeah.
we've allowed for questions in these hearings.
Okay, what we said in our script here is after this presentation, we will allow members of the public to speak for up to 5 minutes. And first, there will be a presentation by Phoenix Rising Resources.
Well, these sections are pretty dense, so we can either plow through them and just hold all questions till the end, or we can stop and do them in between. I will take your direction, Madam Chair.
Okay, do I have a preference from the Planning Commission? How would you like to handle this?
I like the idea of taking it in bites because there's a lot of information here.
Okay, well then let's take it in bites. How many bites do you think you have here, Kala?
This is the first of 3.
Okay, first of 3. Okay, well, do you have a motion to take it in bites and then a second?
Sure, I move we take it in bites.
I don't know how formal we have to be on that.
I'll second that.
Second, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so we're back to the comment on this first section. Do any of the?
Is
other
this comments from the
presentations-
board or from? the-
Yeah, we're starting with the comments from the board. I just want to finalize. Do we have any other people on the board who'd like to comment? Bill?
I have a question on the map there. Was that it? Can we put that back on the screen?
Can we go back to the map? There we go.
The dotted red line towards the bottom, is that the Stewart Ditch?
I believe that is the Stewart Ditch, yes.
And is that indicating a trail along the Stewart Ditch?
It is indicating, as the key shows at the bottom, desired public access.
Desired public access?
Yes, that is the key on the bottom.
Because it's not up to the town, it's not in the town, and it belongs to the Stewart Ditch.
Yes, and so does the other ditch that's outlined, and there is also trails that go past the town border down to the ballpark. So we have indicated what we have heard from the public in our attempt to summarize, as we were directed, the different initiatives that are out there. Again, this is not an official plan, and it's not intended to be one. We just wanted to show you where that stands from what we've read and what we've heard in the processes underway.
Well, if this is a time for my comments, my comments are that Matthews Lane is not part of the town. Samuel Wade Road going up Stop and Save is, and what's labeled as Grand Avenue there used to be Highway 187, that's in the county. So I think there should be a distinction between what's in town that we deal with and what's not in town that would have to be part of some other agreement. And yeah, I think we should keep that in mind.
Noted. We can easily add the town boundary to this map if we decide to include it at all, if you decide to include it at all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Paige?
I have a couple comments. The first is all of your policies that you have presented on slides were not available to review prior to the meeting. Will they be put on the town's website under your comprehensive plan?
All of the policies are in the draft element that was shared 2 weeks ago with the town, as well as the background, and
They were not provided in the agenda packet. And it's not a live link on the comprehensive plan Town of Paonia page. So I'm sorry, that's why I'm bringing it up. We have not, as part of the agenda packet, have not read those policies. So they'll have to be something that we could comment on later. So I just wanted to point that out because I was kind of confused. And then secondly, I believe the map and some content that you have about the transportation section, we have passed an ordinance which changed the speed limits in town. Almost every place is 20. And so it would be good maybe to get with Stefan to get that revised map that the trustees approved earlier this year.
It was in December.
In 2023, but it was an approved ordinance.
Yes.
Correct. So I think you might want to look at those because there were some pretty big changes made to that transit map.
great, thank you.
At this point, yeah, I was going to bring up the same thing about, Matthews Lane is not a town road. And I remember hearing when we had our initial town strategic planning, I was in the group that talked about Matthews Lane, and the previous mayor said, that is a road that is a very odd road. It's actually owned by some of the people that live on it. I have not seen that in writing, but it came up as how could we get a trail out to Volunteer Park? And that point was brought up, that it's not even county, according to Neil Schwederman. So that would have to be confirmed as to who actually has jurisdiction over that piece of Matthews Lane. And I just want us to be careful as to what we put in our comprehensive plan as to what is something the town actually can do. I mean, if you couch it in, find out if it's truly a county road or who owns it, couch it in the terms of try to create some kind of an agreement if you want, for a trail, but you can't hold us to doing things that are honestly out of our legal hands.
Yeah, so I don't think this is meant to hold you to anything. I would remind you that hopefully what will be a next step will be a 3-mile or area plan, which will comment on your desired growth outside of the town boundaries. And again, this is only for the town boundaries. And again, this map is really just to reflect what we heard, which was a request to summarize existing plans, pieces, and processes of this transportation section. So I'm really glad it's starting to promote some conversation.
Yes.
Can I just follow up? What was the reference you just made to the 3-mile plan? What was, what was, what?
I'm going to defer to Administrator Nguyen on this. Stefan, would you be so kind?
Here comes the bus. The existing growth management area, I don't think is quite 3 miles.
The one that was in the 90s, the one that was approved in 2000? That one?
I don't know. I know that when I got here, there was a growth management area that had been discussed and really planned, hadn't been implemented. It still hasn't been implemented because we're waiting to get this process done before we even talk to the county again about their GMA.
If I could add on, because the 3-mile in intergovernmental agreement with the county was brought to the trustees, I believe in early 2023, that has not been finalized, and which needs to be finalized. So that is one place where the town will be cooperating with the county on growth within the 3-mile boundary. But the other thing I was wondering is if you were referring to the plan that I believe came out in 2000, which created areas A and B along Highway 133. Is that the one you're referring to, Val Rose?
No, so thank you for this. There's quite a bit of confusion here. I wish we had our slides from the land use workshop. It's hard. We went through a lot of them, but you may recall the areas that we included fully in this comprehensive plan are the downtown, the proper town boundaries, and areas A and B of the Highway 133 plan. The other areas that are part of the growth management area were not included because we did not receive sufficient public feedback from enough of those areas. We did receive public feedback on some of the areas that are included in the GMA, but not sufficient public feedback to include that larger, what we would say, plan. So the firm boundaries for this comprehensive plan are the town proper plus areas A and B of the Highway 133 plan.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Okay, so the proper place for any discussion about growth management should be in the future land use element. So your Mayor, your comments are more applicable to that future land use element. This is more recreational and transportation. And I can't say when I brought this back up in July of 23, or it might have been September of 23, with the county. At that time, the interim community development director for the county said 3-mile growth management area is too big. That person is no longer with the county. So those negotiations can still continue after this plan process is done.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have any comments, Peter? Anything you want to say?
Question with a focus on this multimodality for transportation, does that change parking requirements in town? Like if we're gonna have more people biking, do we need as many parking spaces for construction and for businesses?
So that's a completely, Madam Chair. So that's a completely separate issue, right? So you're talking about our code of ordinances and making changes to that. That's something that would come after the comprehensive plan. This is us in a bigger picture, that 30,000 elevation saying, this is what we want to be when we grow up. And so, yes, there may be some land use code changes that come out of this, but we'll have to address those one at a time after the comprehensive. We should do something for Mike.
I have one little comment. I don't want to nitpick, but when it says there are no regular public transit options, we do have all points transit. It's something that's available to everybody, in my understanding. It's not just seniors, it's for a small fee. Oh, okay. I was just looking at page 10. Okay, but it's, oh yeah, right. Well, no, it says the Roaring Fork transportation bus here. I don't know where.
Rose could answer it.
Yeah.
I thought I read it.
So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. I don't know if you had it somewhere else, but.
And I wasn't aware that All Points was considered public, but if it is, I'm happy, of course, to revise and include that.
Don't we donate
It's in there.
something?
It's in there, it's in the background section.
Okay.
It's framed in terms of healthcare access. And I think it's aimed at seniors and healthcare access. You can take, like, other people can take it, but it's not accessible.
Yeah. I think the town.
Page 10.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Thank you.
we do. We do contribute to that.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
That's dial-a-ride, I think is what it's really, all points is dial-a-ride. is that-
Yeah, that's right. And they ask for a donation or money if you're not, you know, seniors, but, okay, so do I have any, audience members that are interested in commenting or asking questions? Okay, sir?
Do I need to do the whole formal before I?
Yeah, let's do it. I guess.
I
so.
have a question, actually, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Ella. Is that you?
I am just confused by Planning Commission member Page's comment that you did not receive the policies beforehand. In the transportation element that we submitted, which has the full background, community vision, values, and policies. So I guess what I'm trying to clarify is, can you tell me what you did have beforehand?
Can I answer?
Yes.
So our agenda packet that we received starts on, that agenda packet starts on page 9 with background. Paonia sits to the south of Colorado State Highway 133. That's where our information we were provided begins.
Yeah, that's great. And that document, if it's the transportation element submitted 4/17/24, should have vision, values, and policies in it. I'm just trying to clarify, were those not included in the version you saw?
Correct.
I'm not sure where that went wrong. I did send the full version in 2 weeks prior, so we better make sure that that full version is up online as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, why don't you do that and you can comment.
I'm sure I do that.
Okay. We'll time you for 5
It'll
minutes.
take me as long to do all of this as to ask my question. Mark Newland, 40604 German Creek Drive. I'm also a member of the tree board, and my question, hopefully, maybe you guys can answer this. Do you know alternative ADA materials for sidewalks, or is this something I'm just probably gonna find online?
Yeah, so we did come across several lists of alternative ADA compliant materials for sidewalk and pathway creation. I particularly like the one from the California Department of Natural Resources. I'm happy to provide those as reference. We are not recommending any specific materials here, just that the town formalize a list of materials that will work going forward.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the public? Why don't you approach the podium, please?
Thank you. I will approach the podium.
Mhm.
Hi, Christina Patterson, Price Road. During that strategic plan meeting that we had with the best food ever, there was like 8 dots for having more green space here in town, like more parks, more open space and parks. And I just wondered if, I didn't see anything sort of written there about that specific aspect of the strategic plan. And I didn't see Poulos Park necessarily. I mean, I know this is a rough draft of this, or Hayes Park on there. Or even the North Fork, the museum park, which I think should sort of be established now, come closer to being a park, because it is.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Thank you.
just those things, and yeah, the strategic plan, people were really up for, having that old sewer pond place as a new park as well, green space. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christina. I've noted those other parks. We will be sure to put those in there. Again, this was not a new park planning process, but an attempt to show existing. So we will make sure we absolutely include those existing smaller areas. And yeah, perhaps that's another good comment for the park section, which is also coming up, as well as trees in this presentation.
Are we ready to move on here? Would you like to start in on the second section unless anybody else has any more comments? Okay. Why don't you go ahead, Kella, or?
Sure. And I go by Calla Rose. Thank you. So next slide, please. Great. Okay. Trees. Well, I will just say that people in Paonia, myself included, just love our trees. Our urban forest is very beloved and has been a very consistent topic in public comment. And we did receive some documentation that was really encouraging in terms of steps towards caring for it. So we'll go to the first slide. The vision for the forest, that the town forest that Paonia created. Paonia is home to a thriving, safe, and uniquely beloved town forest that is both resilient and adaptive to a changing climate and the aging of individuals within the larger canopy. That does refer to individual trees. Values, the unique character and wonderful quality of life our town tree canopy provides. The ecosystem services that our urban forest provides the town and its residents. The increased value of real estate that our town canopy provides. The increased walkability of historic neighborhoods that is enhanced by the town forest. These are the values that we heard. Again, any of these things can be open to edits, but we are really doing our best here to summarize what we heard from the public. Next slide. Okay, policies. These policies were pulled in large part from some existing documentation that the tree board put together, and I'm grateful there's a member of the tree board here present tonight. So if anything doesn't quite seem right, hopefully you will send us your written comments and we can write those things. Again, I'm not going to read them all out loud. I'm just going to give you guys a minute to read them yourselves.
Could I ask you, what the right-hand side of the policy number 1 is covered by the video? What is next? It says replace street. Thank
and
you.
Park trees to maintain and improve the town's urban forest.
Okay, thank you.
And then policy number 2, can you see that one fully?
Yes.
All right, and then, so I will just draw your attention to this. There was we did hear from the documentation we received that the tree board members had worked on. I don't believe it was I'm just gonna go back for a second. This is important. Number 2 has a 5-year timeline in it. If this is not something that the town feels like it can commit to every 5 years, we want to make sure we change this, but this was the recommendation that we got, and that we have, given the research that we also looked at with other towns and their trees. So again, I just want to remind folks to please read these carefully. Sometimes something like do this every 5 years may cause the town's feet to be held to the fire in the future. And you may want that, or you may realize that you don't have the resources to responsibly commit to that. So I just want to call out these things, that these are not idle recommendations, and these policies can be and hopefully will be referred to in the future to support the way town does business. Next slide, please.
Well, Madam Chair, if I may, so I know I'm interrupting. In a comprehensive plan, timelines like this aren't supposed to be in there. This is more of an action item that would go into the action list that they're going to produce for us, so that we have something. But in a comprehensive plan, this is a 20-year broad plan. These kinds of timelines shouldn't be in here.
Okay, I just want to say, I can't read the screen. My glasses aren't strong enough, so I have no idea what these policies are.
They're not in the packet.
They're not in the package.
Yeah, and I went into our online packet. They're not in there as well. We only have Parks and Rec.
No, this is a little frustrating to me. I called the town earlier today to ask if all this information was published on the website and in the packet, because I couldn't find it either. and I was told that they didn't know. So I just want to be clear that we provided the information.
We have the email from our consultants, so I don't know why it's not in the packet.
Okay, so we're not taking questions at this point, I suppose. Why don't you move on from Calabro?
Sure, I'm happy to read them as well. So monitor, properly care for, and carefully replace street trees and park trees to maintain and improve the town's urban forest. Policy number 2, conduct urban tree inventories every 5 years. This is where Administrator Nguyen is recommending we do not have a specific year recommendation, or include street and park tree health assessments and replacement plans in an annual budget. Provide greater support and accountability for homeowners, maintenance of trees and public right-of-way, and engage and empower citizens to participate in street tree care. Next policy slide, please. Policy number 4, expand the urban forest to mitigate urban heat island effect, support walkability, preserve real estate value, preserve small water cycling, and improve upstream watershed health. Policy number 5, ensure successful succession in a changing climate by supporting programs that plant new trees at least 3 years prior to old ones being removed. Next slide. Great. So questions and comments. Again, keep in mind that in the element there is some background. Also keep in mind that in our very first draft, we created quite a detailed overview of the existing plans and documents that were provided to us for each section. And in our attempt to really create a streamlined and 20-year comprehensive plan, much of that information has been left out. However, we do have all of that summarized and of course can provide it back to you. So these are meant to be as streamlined as possible. And I will open it up for questions and comments.
Does the board have any more questions, Lynn? No?
Rose, could you go back to, I think, 2 slides? That number, no, back again. Yeah, policy tree 3. The engage and empower citizens to participate in street tree care. That could be a little dangerous. I'm wondering what the thought is there.
Yeah, that's a great question, Lynn. I'm happy to point out the document that we pulled that from. There was a desire on the part of the tree board, and perhaps the gentleman in the audience might speak to if that desire is still relevant today, to see the town do a lot more hosting of information around tree care and engaging residents in helping to provide that tree care. Yeah, that's where that came from.
I'm wondering if you might change it a little bit around and say, working in conjunction with the tree board and under supervision. It just seems like you could get a homeowner out there and decide to just, go cut the tree willy-nilly.
We have an ordinance actually that.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may, I would just delete that last sentence.
Yeah.
I mean, that policy is great. So
It's too specific.
Yeah, I go for that.
Yeah. Okay.
I have notes that I'll get to you before the 13th, but okay.
Do you have any comments?
13th, it's the 13th, end of the day.
Yep.
Just in general, I think I agree with Mr. Nguyen. I think timelines in this are inappropriate.
Okay.
And
Anyone else?
I just was wondering, you have action items for every other element. Are there action items for trees that are in the infrastructure section?
Yes, we were told, we were given some feedback that there were too many action items in the last presentation. So there are action items for each section. They will be provided in an appendix that's given in digital form, so an Excel spreadsheet. There are quite a few action items in the tree section. If you would like to see them, I'm also just happy to send them to you.
Madam Chair. So action items aren't part of the comprehensive plan. It's a separate document. My intent is to use those action items for strategic plan during our budgeting session. So those recommendations, it at least gives us a place to start. because a strategic plan needs action, but it also needs to be funded, so it needs to be part of the budget. That'll come sometime in July when we set a special meeting with the Board of Trustees. So action items will be a separate document, just not part of the company.
It would really be interesting to see kind of the tree view in a form of a diagram, to understand what all these parts are and how they relate to the budget, to the comprehensive plan. I don't know. I don't know how we can get something like that. It sounds like our town administrator has an idea of how things relate. So is there some way that we can get some sort of a diagram with these different parts?
You mean like an outline?
Yeah, well, yeah, like here we have a plan and then we're talking about action items and how they might affect the budget, so you just have like a flow chart. So we can look at it a little bit
Madam Chair,
and understand a little more easily. Yes,
action items are not part of the comprehensive plan.
yes,
So they're a separate item. What the planning commission's document that they're supposed to get together is this master comprehensive plan. But those action items are separate. And since the consultants did all of this work based on a previous, reviewing all sorts of plans, having public feedback, there is some value to having those action items, but more for budgeting purposes, because that's the Board of Trustees realm.
so the action items are kind of off the table a little bit. We're just looking at the plan.
Yes.
as a whole. Okay, thank you.
And if I could just,
Yes.
so the action items, because what we do have in front of us is very heavy on action items. I mean, we have a very good preamble background on transportation, and then we have quite a few action items. So when we want to provide you with comments that of May 13th, we shouldn't be commenting on action items. Is that correct? We as citizens and planning commission members? Is that appropriate to say?
We're looking at like the policies.
Okay.
So then,
We didn't have in the past.
right, so we will be getting in the future, hopefully we will have a new electronic version of this.
Emailing you guys, right?
Okay, so we will have the policies for transportation, we'll have the policy for trees. The action items, you really didn't even want us to see?
No, I'm happy to share them with you. We just felt like it was too much for the presentation, given the feedback that we got last time. But there's no reason why you can't see the action item list, and we can send that to you this evening.
Well,
Since the action items are a matter of discussion tonight, I have to ask, have you given consideration to cost in any of these?
Yeah, so I just want to maybe preface this by backing up and talking about our original RFP and the evolution of this project. And also maybe just starting by saying one of the things that we can do is really do our best here to refine these policies. You're right, they should not be time-driven, and they should not be specific enough to be able to say that they incur a specific cost. So a policy really should be a guiding principle for how the town chooses to act in a certain area, in this case within the trees. So we will do our best to go through and clean that up so that these are considered not so specific so as to drive a particular project that might have a particular cost, and also to provide guidance around how the town should act in governing or supporting these areas. So then the original RFP also included a request for us to summarize action items based on over 56 or 57 different reports, plans, and non-adopted previous comprehensive plans. So the action item list that we provide for each of the elements comes from the summary of recommendations from all those different documents, as well as our own research and professional opinions. That is why that is not being codified in the comprehensive plan, because it is much more specific, and to Administrator Nguyen's points, may contain cost implications, which I believe is why he is inferring that you should talk about it during the budget process.
So Madam Chair, if I may, so that's exactly right. Those action, we're not considering, that was not part of the scope of work for considering the financial implications of any of those action items. It was as Calrose had said, a review of all of the plans that have never made it to the finish line, and pulling out objectives from there that would become actionable items should the town choose to move forward with them during the strategic planning process for the budget. They may have implications for multi-year capital improvement plans as well, and those are significant items that need to be budgeted for.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to, I know we struck something from, about the trees, but about homeowners. As it stands right now, it's pretty nebulous who's responsible financially. I mean, sometimes you see the town taking care of 100% of the street trees, and then sometimes property owners are expected to do the maintenance. And I think it would be nice to emphasize that we have a partnership between the town and property owners, because ultimately it's the property owners who are having to pay for this. And perhaps the town, you kind of alluded to this, but we could, I think it would be nice if it was a little bit stronger, that they'd come up with some kind of a partnership, and not just giving you advice on how to prune, but financially. We need to see a commitment from the town as far as the trees are, because there's such a value to the whole community. It's not just, they were planted many years ago before people even had a choice as to what they were going to be living next to. But I don't know if there's some way you could integrate. I'm not giving you the words, but I don't know if you understand my sentiment.
I do, and I appreciate you asking for clarity on that. I will both circle back with town legal counsel, and yes, that is the sentiment that was very much expressed by the documents we did read in terms of engaging homeowners who do have to pay for the tree in planning for succession and care. So maybe Administrator Nguyen, this might be a good question for you in terms of, should I pursue a conversation with the attorney to understand jurisdiction so we can clarify some of that here?
I don't know if that's too specific, but
I would have to review that
Yeah.
question in greater detail, but I want to be clear. We're setting a vision for the future of Paonia, and it's kind of a conflating of roles and responsibilities. We start talking about financial obligations.
yeah.
This entire document is meant to set guidelines for future growth, not financial decisions. That still lies with the Board of Trustees.
So that's why I like the words partnership and cooperation between the it's broad enough and it sounds positive without being specific. Okay. Are there any other comments from the board? Comments from the public? Okay, let's move on to the next topic, Calrose.
Great. So actually, Marissa's going to take this one from there, and I'm going to take notes.
Okay. This one, Parks and Rec, is actually quite short as well. And that's because we have the Parks, Rec, and Trails Master Plan, which I want to ask for feedback on exactly how we frame that in relation to this document. We've been working on that for a while, trying to get the framing right, but that's the reason why this is shorter, because we already have a lot of content there. So this section kind of frames and supports and connects to that Parks, Rec, and Trails Master Plan. Our community vision is that our parks, recreation amenities, and trail system are well maintained, adequately funded, and importantly, that they're really recognized for the value that they give our community. Kind of we invest and care for them in that way because we know how important they are. And then that there's a formalized role for community leaders and volunteers to support implementation of the Parks, Rec, and Trails Master Plan, as well as actually participating in the Parks, Rec, and Trails maintenance and improvements. Those were both two important things that we heard. Community leaders want to help make the plan happen and volunteers want to be involved in caring for the resources that we have. Community values, that all residents can access a green space or park within a safe 10-minute walk from their home. Recreational amenities serve residents and prioritize their needs first, rather than focusing on attracting tourists. Access to parks, open space, and opportunities for a full range of recreational uses is a value. And then folks would like to see planning and budgeting procedures for parks, rec, and trails involving the public. And finally, that responses to public requests. I don't have this one memorized. Are timely and professional, I'm pretty sure is what it says behind that box. So policies, I think let me just quick look. I think we yeah, there's 7. I'll read them since. Thank you. Oops, there we go. So policy number 1, maintain and enhance parks, trails, and other recreation amenities, focusing on the needs and desires of youth and elders first, personal fitness and health of all community members second, and then visitors and tourism third. Policy number 2, increase capacity and resources for local parks, recreation amenities, and trails through partnerships with community volunteers and relevant local and regional organizations and government agencies. Again, there are a lot of stakeholders who care about this and want to support our care for our parks, rec, and trails. Policy number 3, prioritize development initiatives that preserve and enhance community access to open space and integrate or require park and trail development into land use activities that take place in key areas or corridors of connectivity. So land use planning in relation to parks and trails. Whoops, sorry, I am not a technology person. We can't use the clicker. Okay. Policy 4, preserve and enhance access for all to the river, riparian corridor, and wildlands. And Christina, your question about increasing parks. This is really the main piece that we're pointing out in this section is the riparian access in terms of increasing parks. Policy number 5, ensure ADA accessibility for parking and use of town parks. That was also brought up in the transportation section. Policy 6, when considering new uses for parks or recreational development, take resident and native wildlife habitat into account. So again, making sure we're thinking about the animals and plants that live here as well. And then finally, support the continuation of open water channels, ditches, rivers, creeks, and small surface water transportation. Pretty sure is what that says. Yeah, there we have it.
Could you go back to the last policy slide?
Yeah, are you looking at the bottom one? The last one?
Small surface water
I
transportation.
know. Rose, do you want to speak
Maybe
to
that's not
this?
what that says. Sorry, I'm talking out of turn. We can wait.
Is she still there?
I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually will need to go back and look and see where this came from. I'm not recalling right now where we pulled the surface water transport recommendation from.
We've had more words under there, I think.
Transport near town park.
Yeah.
So
Rosen was trying to
I'm
reduce.
wondering if these are, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm wondering if these are things like kayak launches, that kind of stuff.
And it's probably from
There it is.
Okay.
Near town parks, thank you.
near town parks. Got it. Yes.
Like the river park.
Like the river park, yes.
Thank you.
But it shouldn't be capitalized T.
It's a town, what is it? It's in the county, but the town has some sort of a.
It's not a jurisdiction right here.
Okay, Bill?
I'm sure Steph is going to correct me, but my understanding is that the River Park is a project of the Conservation Center and the Learning Council, and the town of Paonia is loath to even give them gravel for the parking lot.
I think it's just the conservation center. There's always been like some cooperation between the town
And I think it's the best thing that's happened to
I
Paonia since I've
bet
been here.
Stefan might know a little bit more.
it's certainly Madam Chair, so it's
Yeah.
certainly a jurisdictional it's a jurisdictional thing that we need to fix. And yes, the town, I think I was successful in getting gravel passed last year. But in previous years, it was very hard to get any sort of investment at River Park.
I also want to point out that the River Park was included in the area. I don't remember if it's area B or A in the Highway 133 plan. So even though it doesn't fall within town jurisdiction, we have included it as an area within the area that this plan is applicable to.
Yeah, and similarly, just with discussion of Matthews Lane and the trail to the volunteer park, a lot of, like, we did look heavily at the Parks Rec and Trails Master Plan, which has a little more holistic view, thinking outside town boundaries and how we connect to some of the other assets. So I was just thinking when the questions came up about, like, why are we talking about Matthews Lane? I just wanted to give that background that some of these things came out of the Park Recs and Trails Master Plan, Rec and Trails Master Plan, and we're trying to elevate and just work with the existing plan, understanding that it might be updated as well.
Okay,
I
any
like
more
kayaks.
questions? Nothing, oh, Lynn?
And just in response to that, where on this map where you have access to the River Park all the way over to the library from Price Road, that in fact is private property. So it might not, I don't know, should make sense to put that on.
That's okay. I think that map has already been updated.
This is what was in our pack.
Yeah. Yeah, we got, yes, it's evolving, and I could take a picture of it, or you can take a picture of it and send it to me.
No, I'm gonna say private. This is a private road also, and it's on here at a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Which road are you referring to?
The one from Vista, Creek Vista, or Vista Drive up right past Apple Valley Park. It's actually a private drive shared by 3 homes. And it has the wrong street sign on it. It should be a green sign versus a blue sign. But it shouldn't show a speed limit.
Yeah.
It shouldn't even be on.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions from the board? Nothing, anything from the public? Okay, I have two, Christina, you can go, ladies first.
Ann Patterson, Price Road. In policy rec number 2, it says increase capacity and resources for local parks, recreation amenities, and trails throughout partnerships with community volunteers and relevant local and regional organizations and government agencies. And I think you should add like private landowners, because that could also be the case, that they would give up access for trails and things like that. Thanks.
Thank you. I facilitate easements as one of the action items, but we can also.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and make your comment? Yeah.
Mark from the tree board. Marissa, maybe you can tell me, it was your first slide, the vision slide. You mentioned formalized role, I think, of community.
Yeah,
I want to know what that means.
yeah,
Because we've internally in our board, we've talked about what's the plan for the parks? What's the plan for anything? We don't know, and we need some direction on that. So maybe this will address it. Thanks.
should I go back?
I would like to speak to that if I may. We heard quite a bit, both from the tree board and from members of the public, requests for ways in which to have appropriate and more formalized roles for community leaders and volunteers. Administrator Wynn did provide some great examples of the city. Fort Collins has a really wonderful and well-established volunteer program. And so it's, if appropriate, we can go back and put something in like that in our policies. It isn't an action item to pursue the development of a program like that. But I do just want to say that there is some more specificity on that particular area included in the action items.
May I also?
Thank you. Yes.
Um,
Hold on. I
I'm
did,
sorry.
Mind?
yeah, Marissa.
I think this is important. Specifically, we heard from some of the community leaders who are involved in the parks, recs, rec, I don't know why I keep calling it recs, because I'm nervous. Parks, rec, and trails master plan, and it's a mouthful, that they and their organizations could lend more resources and capacity to help make the plan happen, and even other initiatives outside of the plan. Ben Graves from the Nature Connection was here to kind of speak to some of the opportunities there, but he had to leave. He also was involved with, ran the walk audit that has fed into the transportation element. They even mentioned things as specific as like, we could share a staff position with someone on the town who's paid, someone who works for the town in part, and in part works for a nonprofit, and they share the cost so that there's one whole person available to do more of a strategic planning level approach to the parks. Not just maintenance, but planning and strategy. But we took a lot of that out because again, it was like too specific. It was too much into the world of action items, but they had some really good ideas and want to be a resource. So that's why I wanted to just mention that there's interest. I think the structure needs to be clarified, and that's in the realm of the action items.
Thank you. Bill, did you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to say that it sounds like you're talking about a different sort of volunteering than
Both.
would normally be referred to. And the thing that I've witnessed over and over is that volunteer efforts fall apart after a couple of years. And so if, on the other hand, I do not want to minimize at all the accomplishment that these people have made with the river park. And so I think there needs to be a distinction somehow between, because you say volunteer, you got, I'll water the plants, and then
Exactly.
and they don't, you know. So if, like I say, I really appreciate some of this that's happened. And I think it's a little different than just saying volunteer, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We can find some language to formalize that. Again, I really would encourage you all to, if you are interested in how to formalize the volunteer work, take a look at what the city of Fort Collins is doing. It's a great example of how to keep and engage and build volunteers over time, so you don't have that sort of random attrition, and also a way to not place volunteers in inappropriate mechanisms in government where they should not be. Yeah, that's a really great program. There's some other ones around the state, but Bill, if you have any specific, or anyone, if you have any specific language for this vision, you can please write it down and let us know, and we will do our best to incorporate it.
Well, I don't have a copy of this segment either. So maybe somehow I could get that.
You should speak to the town staff about that.
Mayor Smith, what is the town's current policy on volunteers? Does the town currently, I mean, I know that the discussion has come up a couple of times. Is there a current policy of understanding?
The only thing that I can answer as a previous trustee is that we included insurance for volunteers.
So we do have insurance for volunteers.
I don't know if we still do. We did. I don't know if we do with our new CERS. That's the only thing. I don't know if we still have it with our CERSA policy.
Yeah, so that's such a loaded question. We do carry some liability insurance for like volunteer boards and commissions, but for volunteers out in the field actually doing work, that's a different story. That liability goes significantly higher. But we do carry some liability insurance for volunteers, just not if somebody's going to go out and pick weeds at, in alleyways. We don't carry insurance for that.
That would be me.
So I think that needs to be recognized in these visions.
Well, I also just want to suggest that perhaps this conversation is doing what it's intended to do, which is to spur conversation around how you do these things. How does the town respond to meet the vision of the community? And it's not our role to tell you exactly how to do that in this process, but it is our role to promote and prompt those conversations and hope that that continues to be something that is brought forward because it has been named as valuable by the community.
So,
Okay, Lynn.
This is actually when we volunteered to do this piece out front here, the town actually did. At first, they said we couldn't do it because there was no insurance, and then they got some temporary insurance that for each project. So, I'm just wondering if insurance is a problem, because we had asked the town at the time, can we just sign a waiver and say, we're not gonna sue you or whatever? So I think,
And that was not okay. They needed the
they
insurance.
they did get insurance.
So it sounds like the Fort Collins example might be good to look at to see how they handle that.
Could you put that as a link into this? I don't have a copy of this
Yes.
either.
I'm happy to provide that link to you all.
Fort Collins.
Right.
Okay, Stefan has something to say.
Yeah, so we did look up our coverages. We do a volunteer accident medical plan. So that's the only coverage that we have, and I believe it's based on 40 volunteers.
Right.
And so 40.
Is that at one time?
That one.
That's throughout the entire year. That's currently what we're covered for.
So if someone's volunteering to prune their street tree and they're up in the tree and they fall down and break their teeth.
It's not a formal volunteer with the town. So I think what we're looking at here is Cal Rosen said it. How do we integrate volunteers into this, into this comprehensive plan, for parks and trails? And maybe that's a deeper discussion after the comprehensive plan is implemented on how we bring those volunteers into the fold.
Okay. Yeah, I think looking at other towns like Fort Collins, to see how they, just so we have an image of how that works.
Keep
And
in
I
mind-
have included the link in the chat. You can also just simply Google it. The program is called Volunteer. They actually created it with a third party. It's a very robust program. It's pretty impressive. And yeah, I hope that this is a way to prompt discussion on how to do this. And again, we're not trying to tell you how to do it. We are making some suggestions in the action items, but again, those are not included in the comprehensive plan because this is not meant to be directive so much as it's meant to be visionary.
Yes, I looked at what Fort Collins does and I have to tell you, please keep in mind, it's
College
Fort
Town.
Collins.
Yeah, it's College
So we don't have staff to do what they do.
Madam Chair, if I may, so I was about to make that same
Thank
comment.
you.
Even though I'm the one that, hey, this is a great program, it might be something that we can scale way down to. It is a college town. And so that's something that, to trust Commissioner Bruner's point, volunteer efforts need to be intentional. And maybe that's what this action, or not the action, but maybe that's what this needs to say is intentional efforts to engage volunteers. Maybe that's the.
That sounds
That's good.
Mhm.
How about if we try to engage volunteer organizations?
That covers those, the parks that Ben's a part of as well.
Yeah. Just put an and.
Just a general comment, maybe on pretty much all of those, put endeavor to in the beginning. Yeah. I mean, a point of a question on procedure here. So we broke this into pieces and we're commenting on the pieces and then later we're going to make general discussion, correct? Or is this general discussion?
I don't know. So this is the third point that we're on right now, is that correct?
is correct. We don't have any generalized discussion as part of our presentation, though if the commission chooses to do so, we would encourage that. But this is essentially, maybe we can just go ahead and finish out. Marissa, will you please move us, or Ruben, will you please move us to the last slide?
So instead of it being a community vision, intentional efforts, we're going to talk about the urbanization.
Transportation background.
Transportation. Okay, we can come around to that.
So these are our next steps for folks who can't see because they don't have glasses or are unable to view the screen. 5:15, all public, I thought it was 5:13, but it's all public comments are due 5:15. And that does really mean from the board and the commission. No, I'm sorry, that 15 is incorrect. Marissa, that's supposed to be a 13. It's a Monday, and we need all public comments due on the 13th.
Okay.
So I apologize. I should have caught this earlier. All these comments are due on the May 13th, which is a Monday by the end of the day.
In Cal Rose, it's actually the 15th.
Are you sure? In our email conversation, we have the 13th.
This is part of that updated schedule. Comment period ends for this specific element on the 15th.
Oh, sorry. Yes, that's
It's the
correct.
other comments that are due from us by the 13th. So we.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So the first one's correct and the second one's the 13th. Thank you, Stefan.
So, and for us that are planning commission staff and board of trustees, our comment period for all of the elements is due on the 13th, but this specific element for public comment is due on the 15th. So does that make sense?
Could I?
Yes, go ahead.
Can I ask, because you have that up here? So I have gone through the elements that I could pull up on the town website. And I have started making my comments. So is that where I should be looking? And I'm making comments on action items. So I really I did not know that was superfluous. And I don't need to comment on action items. I just want to clarify that. So then this element will also be uploaded to the town's website so we can see this element in total to do comments for this element on the 15th, or I may just do them all and give them to you on the 13th. So am I looking at this properly? There's no one place that I can see the whole thing in total. I have to look at each element on the master plan town website.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And this will be uploaded to there, hopefully.
I think you did a remarkable job of explaining all that, given the level of confusion.
And Madam Chair, if I may, it will be on the website. I didn't know it wasn't on the website.
Okay.
So then the part that we do have in our packet is later.
That's like more the background material that you received. It's not like the most important piece. That started as a portion of each element, and then we were advised to slim it down, focus on the vision, values, and policies. So that's the most important piece, the vision, values, and policies. And it sounds like what you ended up with is actually the less important part that's going to be living in the appendix.
Except there's quite a few action items. So are we supposed to comment on those or not?
I guess I'm really confused as to what you got. And so I need to take a look at your agenda packet and make sure that you didn't get an old copy of an old draft. And to clarify again, I will send an updated email just to make sure we are all looking at the same thing. It was probably gonna be the same as the email we sent 2 weeks ago, but I don't know what you guys are looking at. So what I can say is each of the elements is alone on there until we receive all comments from the board and planning commission, which are due on the 13th. Thanks to Stefan for clarifying public comment needs a full 2 weeks. So that will be the 15th. And then we are going to put them all together and you will have a draft, which has all the elements in one place. And you will also have a copy of all the action items in one place on an Excel spreadsheet. At that point in time, you are also welcome to go ahead and look at all of them together And I will leave that up to the administrator's discretion as to how much comment we can take. Certainly, we can correct things until we have that final draft, where we will be doing, delivering that final draft to you all. So yeah, that's how it's going to work.
No?
So I just have a general comment. That when I look at this, the parts that I've been able to see, kind of what I see is everything that everybody said that got a sticky dot is in this plan. And this is voluminous. And I would take like to have a little discussion with Administrator Nguyen on the visionary aspect of this versus the effect that it's going to have. And the plan that we have now, I'm actually kind of proud. Long ago, it happened because I got it going as a trustee. It was adopted after I was off the board. But that plan, as vacuous as it may be, has served the community pretty well. And it has been the underpinning of the change in direction of several development proposals that have come before the town over the past couple of decades. And there's a lot of places in our code and state law that refer to this master plan when making decisions. And it's kind of tricky because this is not a decision-making document. It's not like the zoning rules, but it is very important. And just as a general comment, I'm afraid that this has got so much of the kitchen sink in it that it's going to be really confusing to look back on this in the future and try to pick out what we're supposed to use this for from this business where everybody that had an idea, we honored them with a line in the master plan. And I think it's certainly this commission's job, if not the contractor's job, to winnow this stuff down to something, like, how many pages is this all together? Anybody know?
Bill, when question for you, are you talking about the action items in there as well?
I'm talking about the master plan that this commission is charged with adopting.
There are segments that we've been looking at. So you're wondering how many pages overall?
Altogether, how many pages have we got?
They've been doing this over a series of months.
Yeah, how many pages is it? I mean, approximately.
Well, we're not going to know that exactly until we put all the pieces together. I just want to respond to your comment and say we have winnowed it down quite a bit. There are photos of all of the white papers that have dots next to them, and I assure you that not all of the dots received a line item. And then we are really looking to this board very much so to comment on what it wants to see. And so far, we actually haven't received any written comments yet, or verbal ones besides the great verbal comments we got in the last section were very helpful. So definitely standing by to do that. And we look forward to getting that direction. It needs to be something that's workable for you all.
And well,
Lynn has a question, but
I just want to kind of add on to that. I believe that they took into consideration that plan, quite a bit when
the previous plan.
the previous plans. And that, the things with the dots and all the meetings were based upon pretty much everything in that plan and then looking at upgrading it. So I do think it does, answer to that.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's contrary to that or something, but I'm saying that is compared to this, I haven't seen all the pages, so I don't know, but it seems like that's a much smaller document. And I think there's a lot of stuff in this that I've seen that for me, as a possible decision maker on the trustee side, that I think there's too much in here. I think that it's too specific in a lot of places, and it is extremely important how it winds up, because it is going to be something referred to in making decisions in the future. And another thing, I have to say this. Paonia is a town that's been here for a long time. And I feel that, like, to a certain degree, this comprehensive plan or master plan, whatever it is working out to be some big changes to this community. And I think we need to proceed with caution in reinventing who Paonia is. I don't think that's my role at all, to reinvent Paonia. My role is to try to help Paonia and smooth our way into the future without reinventing it. I mean, I really believe that government needs to set a level playing field and let people live their lives and take us where we go. So that's the direction I would like to see things move, personally.
I mean, I just make your comment that everything in the transport, parks, rec, and trails, trail elements, I think, is in line with the community's values. I'd want to see, like, specifically, are there pieces there that you think are sort of looking to change the community, or really looking just to bring, the community more in line with what values, what our plans are more in line with the values of community members?
Right. Well, I tell you what, it's pretty hard for me to really comment specifically on any of this, because this is the first time I've seen it, and I can't absorb all this stuff in one setting. I have a question when we say community, that the entire community has been represented in this process. There's a lot of people.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but we do have the public comment out, and we had public sessions, and these are public hearing sessions, and we have advertised these. So we really are responsive to those folks who have shown up, who have responded to the outreach. We have a mailing list that we send this out to. I don't think we can think about the public that hasn't represented themselves as much as we can look at as professionals and the public comment we have received and the prior plans and pre-existing plans. So I just would say the reason we had these planning sessions was for people to comment, and there still are 2 weeks for folks to comment. And I hope we do get more comments, because we haven't really gotten that many in these last sections. We had a lot of participation in the public workshops that were hosted at Town Hall and then at the Blue Sage. We haven't gotten a lot of feedback on the planning elements themselves. So I am open to any suggestions the commission has on how to further advertise the need to get those comments in. What I'm hesitant to do is try to represent some unknown element that has not shown up and voiced public comment, because it would be inappropriate for us to do so.
Bill?
So I understand what you're saying, but as a elected official of the town of Paonia, it's my responsibility to represent everybody. So I just have to keep that in mind.
Great, and I look forward to getting your comments. Thank you for taking the time to make those.
Paige, did you have something?
So,
Placing horses.
oh, you want to, here, go ahead, and then I'll ask my question.
Okay, I just counted 20 pages in terms of the policies, vision, and values, not all the background and action items. The RFP initially asked for 30 to 40 pages. Bigger, because we were trying to make it more robust, and then we've gone and narrowed it down again.
So if I may comment on that, the original RFP had talked about 40 pages. That's not a comprehensive plan. In no way, shape, or form is that even a best practice. What a comprehensive plan is meant to do is to guide the future planning process for the town based on certain elements described in Colorado statutes. And some of the elements, so I did ask for elements, like the transportation element, because that is a statute. It's something that should be in there. The items I did ask to be removed from the comprehensive plan are action items. So those things that are very robust, it's an Excel spreadsheet, it probably reduced it by many, many pages. Because those aren't supposed to be a part of a comp plan. Those items are normally tied with fiscal responsibility. And our policy should be more geared towards, hey, in the parks and recreation, we want to see more trail system. We want to see kayak launches. We want to see more built out of our parks. Well, that's something that can help drive a capital improvement plan, but that doesn't set that policy. It just says we're going to fund, we're going to recommend that it's funded. So that way, that's the community's vision. That's the planning commission's role, is to say, Board of Trustees, this is what the community wants. Please make this vision happen. And so, there's got to be that separation, right? There's got to be a separation of what the master comprehensive plan actually is intended to do based on statute, and then what the Board of Trustees' roles and responsibilities are for making those happen by putting real dollars to it.
My only reservation is we keep using this broad term community, but the people who are funding it are going to be the taxpayers who actually live within the city limits. And that's what makes me afraid sometimes. We've had this broad input of what we need to be doing, but it's the taxpayers who are going to be funding this. So I just want to point that out. I don't have any answers. Yes, Kate.
I was just gonna say, the thing is with this plan, nothing will get done unless the trustees approve it. So that will be the next level of public input. So,
Well, what I've always heard in the past is like, well, our plan says so we're gonna do this. I mean, there's been a real, it seems to be kind of a rubber stamp.
Are you referring to the trustees approving this?
no,
No.
I'm referring to the
Project.
trustees then
Doing something.
putting
Yeah,
things
project.
into place.
Okay, Bill?
When do I get a copy of the actual plan that I'm supposed to that is appropriate for me to comment on? Because I don't want to go through all the background stuff. If, it led to these pages, and I need to see these
Chair,
pages.
if I may.
Okay, yes.
So we already accommodate for, if you want printed versions, you just need to let us know. We'll print something off for you with these elements. We already accommodate for people that don't.
I know, but
He's
I
talking
need
about
to
the
see the
missing
plan, I can see it on a computer or you can print it, but I don't feel like I have that in front of me. I feel like I've got, lots of things that I've learned tonight are irrelevant to this decision. So when do I get to see what's relevant to the decision?
Kate?
And let me follow up because that was so I have the infrastructure element found on the website. And it has overview, vision, values, policies, and this is what I reviewed. And then it goes into background. Is the background that we have for transportation tonight and the background that I'm seeing here, which is broken into water, wildlife irrigation, municipal, is that background going to be part of the comprehensive plan? And do you need our comments on that? Or are we
That's a
scaling
great
it back?
question.
Okay.
That particular infrastructure background is very long and has been recommended that we move quite a bit of it back to an appendix. It is up to your discretion and we'll take your direction on that. We found the need to summarize it because there was a lot of, I would say, disparate understandings of how those things worked in our public information sessions. And so that section has a particularly long summary. I don't think it will stand in the final plan at that length, but again, I would encourage you to let us know what you would prefer.
Could you, if I might, I'm now looking at the land use map policies and actions, which is on the website. And it begins in pink. And again, I reviewed it. And it has a lot of maps. And then it has introduction to the land use element, vision, policies and actions, review policies, future land use map, summary and next steps. Is that what I could review that is going to be incorporated into the comprehensive plan?
That sounds like a PowerPoint, unfortunately. Perhaps what we could do to clarify is send a single packet with all the elements to date to Steph, and I know that they have everything because we've sent it before, but we can do that. And we also have sent the introduction, and that would allow you to see them all together. We haven't formatted them all together yet because we do want to make sure we have as many comments incorporated before we put them into a large format, but we can send a summary of all the pieces that just summarizes everything we've already sent, but is in one place.
Wait, if I might,
No,
if
go ahead.
if you could put together the draft that the trustees are gonna have to approve in one place for us to read, and then take the things out that are gonna be in an appendix, reference them, that's the document that I could do best with. And you know I'm a detail person and I will read this. But I'm having a really hard time tracking the pieces and the big picture. And I did not, so I know it's worked for you all, but if you could create that continuous document that contains all the elements and reference the appendices and the action items.
So we have a final draft in our date list for the 22nd for all those pieces together. If you would like me to produce something before that, it will not be in a formatted version, but we can just literally put all of the pieces together and it would be like one big run-on document, but it would not be in a final format. But we do plan to deliver that final format on the 22nd.
And
So
when
if it's
is,
helpful, we can put everything in the same place,
but right
but
now,
just know that it's not going to be in its formal formatting section until the 22nd.
however, I see this next steps, June 11th, we're to vote to adopt the comprehensive plan. I'm very confused as to what is our firm deadline here for approval?
I'm following the schedule that was provided to me that we agreed upon with the town administrator. I'm open and flexible to comment. You guys let us know what you need.
We talked, yeah.
But the trustees,
And then they have to approve.
yeah, so, I mean, I'm gonna be a lot more help if I see a complete copy in draft, and don't make me read it the night before I'm supposed to approve it. That's all I'm saying. Right now, I spent all weekend, I have to tell you, I spent a lot of the weekend looking at all the pieces, and I did create comments. I haven't shared them yet, because I've learned a lot tonight that some of them I don't need to share. So if I don't know, I mean, if we can push back when this has to be approved, which is there a firm deadline that the state is holding us? No.
No,
Well,
and I
so-
also just say, like, we can easily give you all the elements. We have them all created. We can give them to you in one document. It's just in terms of a public formatted, fully bibliography document, that's going to take us some time to do. It will not take us time to put all the elements as we have them in one document and send it to the town.
If I might, if those elements could be very clear, that, I mean, it almost feels like, shouldn't we be commenting on those action items? I mean, don't you want some input from us, or you don't?
Madam Chair.
And I'm happy to not.
So I really didn't want action items at all, even in these draft documents.
Okay.
But it was, as Cal Rose had said, it was part of that original contractual agreement. They don't belong in a comp plan. So that's why she was presenting them, or the decision was made to present them at the same time as these policies and for each element. However, shouldn't be in the comp plan. So I think Cal Rose, what we're looking for is all of these elements just in one document without the action items. And I think that'll help on the planning commission side of things as well as the board of trustees.
Great.
I guess
So then,
we can talk about this like tomorrow, you and I, on who would do that. It's something I can do. We can figure out the logistics.
Thank you. You'll get a lot better response from us.
Okay.
I'm
So-
happy that we found a way to help everyone feel like they can see the whole process. And again, I think we can get that to you pretty quickly. Just to understand that the fully annotated, like, beautiful thing is going to take a little bit more time.
Okay, thank you. So does that wrap this up? Cal Rose, or did you have something to say, Marissa? Or has it been probably?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and just in response to the earlier remark by Commissioner Lunar about the kind of level of participation, and also concerns Chairwoman about you know, who's being represented in the process. I also wanted to mention and remind folks that we sent a mailer to 700 in-town mailing addresses that were provided to us by the town after our first public workshop, because there was concern that like things that are done online aren't accessible to some people aren't gonna come into town hall, and that concern about like folks coming from outside of town limits and weighing in. So that was kind of our best attempt to make sure we're getting, we made it accessible to everyone who lives within town limits. We even we went ahead and did it. The town didn't wanna cover the cost of our postage. Me and my 7-year-old stamped like 400 envelopes. So we're really trying to make sure that there's good representation. And out of those, we said, you know, if you drop this off at town hall with your comments written on it or send it back to us, we'll enter you in a drawing to get a Big D's gift certificate. And we had only like less than 5 of those 700 came back to us.
Okay, thank you, Paige.
I just want to say, it's human nature.
Yeah.
Strategic plans are fun, there's food, you see your friends. Reading and making comments, it's tough. You're only gonna get it for once. I mean, honestly, the average person doesn't have the level of interest or responsibility. So I'm just saying, I think what you did was great, but you're just not gonna get a lot of people to do this because we sign up as ridiculous volunteers.
Yeah. I also wanted to appreciate, I mean, everyone who's here, for everybody, for going above and beyond. And the other pieces we really did try to honor, like the heritage of the community, the history. We've incorporated that as often as possible, and also brought in all of our values are based on the work of the Heart and Soul Project from 2014, which interviewed people of kind of across the community, the political spectrum, coal miners, ranchers, artists, to create that shared set of values. And that's what all of our values were based on. And then we worked in our group sessions to evolve those values. But we have tried to honor the history of the community as much as possible.
I'm sure you have.
And we have done 3 very interactive, large public work sessions, and then each of these individual planning commission sessions. And so we did have very strong attendance for the first 3. And we did provide food at the first one. And this brings us to the last thing, which is we are going to host a pizza party to share the document in its final draft with the community and to thank them for their participation at the Blue Sage on June 6th. So everybody here is invited and we'd love to see you. Unless this gets pushed back and we need to take more time, in which case we will reschedule this. But as of now, it is a scheduled celebration with food and fizzy water to just thank everybody, the community, the commissioners, and the trustees for participating in this process.
Okay, do we have any other comments, or are we ready to wrap this up? There's not going to be any action on this item today. It was just a presentation. So I think we understand that comments will be accepted, and there's going to be a document that's will be presented on the town website that's kind of complete. Well, you know, it's more comprehensive. Yeah.
Could be a draft.
Yeah, draft, a comprehensive draft, a draft that's comprehensive.
Of the comprehensive plan, a comprehensive draft of the comprehensive plan. We will get you that very soon, and I will connect with staff to understand what the best format is.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Calrose, and thank you, Marissa.
Thank you all. Have a good evening. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is.
Madam Chair, needs formal classified.
Oh, okay. So, I guess this portion of the public hearing, for the draft comprehensive plan is closed.
It's fine.
Is that fine? Was there some specific
If
word?
it were quasi judicial, it would really matter.
It's kind of informal.
I just,
Yeah,
I don't want to see myself.
not really. Oh, is it second page?
What are you looking at?
Oh, we're just looking at
So
the.
that-
Okay, comprehensive.
Every time I try to consider it, I find it's like Easter.
Yeah. I don't see where we're at.
I'd like to make a motion for a 10-minute recess. For 5 minutes.
Let's do 5 minutes. It's getting kind of late.
Second.
Yeah, bathroom break.
Yeah.
Okay, second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Take a recess.
I'm already going.
Oh, painful.
5 hours yesterday.
I don't know. But I'd like the planning commission.
So used to have that crews available.
Stefan has it.
Just.
See, I sent you a
I don't know.
copy of it a long time ago. That's a PDF document.
It'll be interesting to look at that.
It's all been renumbered.
I was thinking it'd be helpful to have a planning commission vote here too.
Well, you know what? Our
And
whole-
we in the state.
No, ours.
Ours.
That's not in here. What's in here is the
The
land
thing
use.
is,
I think if you have
yeah,
meetings.
it's not just
Future,
Power.
That's much more transparent.
It says, the shall be
Use
like,
a
oh,
model that everyone
variances
knows the
for this
weights, they know what
code.
goes in, they know what comes out, so
Maybe
that
that-
there's no personal.
It's funny because he's got his thing.
This part is, yeah.
Yeah, this used to be-
It's raining and it's just, it's thick. It's thick.
It needs to wrap.
So when it refers to.
Well, I don't know, you're the expert.
Right.
Yeah.
They were talking. Anyway. Okay.
So
I'm gonna
usually
hammer
what
it.
happens.
Is every- we probably through everything for this last issue.
Is everybody back in the room? I did that kind of loud.
Those of us that can't.
Okay, so, the second item on the agenda is another public hearing. Evan, do we want to open it as a public hearing?
Yes, because there is somebody here who's been waiting for.
Okay,
So.
okay, I will now open the public hearing on the consideration of a recommendation to the Board of Trustees of the variance for the parking minimums of the town municipal code for the Learning Council for the use of the hearth as the property located at 138 Grand Avenue. The procedure for the hearing will be as follows. First, there will be a presentation by, I don't have the wording for this one here. Do I have it here?
Should be probably right.
Is of what page are we on? Is that, I didn't see a specific one. Yeah, I was looking at the agenda. Okay, so are we gonna have a staff, of the applicant? Do we have an applicant here that's gonna, okay? Let me see where we're at here then.
Is there?
So there's no applicant
boxes on-
presentation. Did the administrator want to make the presentation or anything? It's not appropriate. Okay, so the next step would be public comment. I open the public comment portion of the public hearing. But how can we have that without an applicant?
Oh, wait, let's back up. So
But you.
staff report?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, we haven't skipped that part yet?
no, I was asking if there was a staff.
You almost did skip it.
Okay.
Okay,
All right, so I will give some background on this. Having seen the application as it came in, or to review this application, it came in on October 30th of 2023. And finally reviewing it for this public hearing, and seeing that the way that it was sent in was as a variance. That's, after doing some research, they should not have submitted a variance. It should have been submitted as a special review. But I say that it should be submitted as a special review because the use of the hearth has never been approved. So while the restaurant portion of that building had been approved as a use, the office spaces are approved by right. The hearth is considered commercial recreational, and that in C1 needs to be done by a special review. That use has never been approved. It's never even been discussed in a public hearing. And so this application for variance from the parking minimums is not accurate. It should be put in as a special review. And I'll say this, a new public hearing and noticing period will be required. Additional information will need to be reviewed. The Learning Council currently has 2 building permits, 2022-06 commercial remodel and 2023-07 a new PV system. Parking requirements for the mix of uses are assembly space, which is the hearth, that community or commercial recreational is 1,063 square feet. It's to be determined depending on the number of seats. That hasn't been discussed yet. We've never discussed that. The town has never discussed that. So we need more information from the applicant. For section 16.610 of our code, that's where that parking requirement comes in. And then it will need an additional 2.63 spaces, off-street spaces for the ice cream shop classified as a restaurant. Section 16.610A states, the following number of off-street parking spaces shall be provided with the construction, addition, or change of use. That's the key word, change of use, which requires a special review to any of the buildings or uses listed in table 16.5 below. This should have been a special review, and those parking requirements would have been addressed at that time. Since those parking requirements, it came in as a variance from the parking requirements, it triggered, hey, why are we getting this? And we got comments from trustees and I think even one of our plan commissioners said, why is this coming in like this? And I can tell you it's because a special review has never been done for that use and it needs to be considered. So I do give a recommendation that this be tabled in the staff report, but after further consideration, I would say that just to table it doesn't satisfy the requirements here. It's either we deny it or we remand it back to staff for further consideration as a special review for use of the hearth as a commercial recreational space. Now, this applicant has already paid $250. It's less than that's a less amount than what is required for a special review. So I would procedurally, from an administrative standpoint, that would be applied as a credit towards the actual fee for a special review. And so that is the end of the staff report. And that was, I guess I should say, that was, there was a lot of looking back into historic records that we received from Shums Coda. An inspection was given, an inspection report was added as an attachment to this packet to show you that it had always been a question on parking before they receive any sort of certificate of occupancy or temporary certificate of occupancy. That use has never been considered. So.
On page.
So given that there's the 1,000 so many square feet, and then they are, from their own volition, they came in because of what they're doing behind their building, which is apparently taking up parking spaces that they never really, it's never been clear what parking spaces they need. But they have built some sort of a thing. Seating and but never came in. So can all of this be done under the same special review umbrella? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, so what has been approved by their construction documents and by their building permit is an outdoor learning space in the, if that's east, right? That is north, in the northeast corner of that rear side of their lot. There's a community learning space that's allowable. It's on that.
That'll be southwest.
South, yeah, on that side, right? So that's what would be, that's been approved, but like an outdoor fire pit, that's not approved. This outdoor seating area, that's not approved. I mean, those are things that the burning ordinance, those are things that there's code enforcement issue. This is more multi-layered with code enforcement issues as well.
Does anybody else have any questions or?
Procedurally, where are we in this public hearing? There's no presentation from an applicant. Then we've asked questions, then the board has asked questions of the applicant, then the public hearing's been closed, and then the board has their question and comment section. Where are we in all that?
Yeah.
Are we just not doing that?
No, we are. So even though it would be no different than if there was a public hearing and the applicant.
So we're in the question that the applicant's face.
Well, there's a staff report before any questioning of
Okay.
applicants. That's where we're at in this process.
Let's have the applicant's presentation.
There's no one
There
here.
isn't. Then we move on to questions for the applicant.
I mean, the matter before us is a variance for parking, yes?
Mhm.
So your staff report is saying that there's a bigger issue besides I'm going to paraphrase and let me know if I'm understanding.
Sure.
That there's a bigger issue than just parking variances, that they haven't had approval for a lot of the different things that they're doing.
That's accurate.
Is that accurate?
So the thrust of my question is, when is it appropriate to make a motion?
I would say after public comment, so we still go through that public hearing process, take the public comment because it's still relevant, and then close it and make a decision. I'm really concerned about just tabling it, because that doesn't really satisfy the issue at hand. We would actually need to make a more formal motion, such as remanding it back to staff to have them go through the special review process for a change of use for commercial recreation.
Okay, so at this point, is it appropriate to close the public hearing, or do we have any comment from the public first that we'd like to entertain? Okay, sir, why don't you come to the podium and,
You swear them in too. Okay.
Pardon?
You gotta swear them in.
okay. So, do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Mitch Morgan, 40018 M Road, Paonia. My wife and I also own Paonia Farm and Home Supply, which is 2 doors down from the Learning Council. So at this time, we have a few questions about this topic. They're not elevated to level of concern yet. It would depend on the answers that you guys provide as you do your research. So as I look on page 21 of your packet, which is part of their application, page 2. So Roman numeral 2, section H, anticipated traffic flow and volume. It reads, regularly less than 20, for special events 2 to 8 times per year, up to 200 people. So that's what the applicant read, or the application read. So 4 questions, not wanting answers tonight, but as you work through this special use or whatever it may be, does 200 people equal 100 cars? Question 2, will the special events take place Monday through Saturday? Question 3, will the special events take place between 8 and 5? Then question 4, if so, if those answers were yes, where are the local residents who patronize the retail locations on Grand Avenue supposed to park? I'm sure there's other issues, which we heard tonight, you'll have to investigate and consider as you move forward with this variance or special use. We would ask that you respect all stakeholders and the effect it may have on them. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other people who wish to comment? Okay, seeing none, I now close the public hearing.
You get the gavel for that.
Okay. I was distracted by that bright yellow sign on the radio. I just couldn't even watch. Okay, so the public hearing is closed. Is there any further discussion by the Board of Trustees?
Board of Trustees?
I mean, I'm sorry. It says right here, it's the Board of Trustees, Planning Commission Board, Planning Board. Okay. Okay, if there's no further discussion by the Planning Board, I would entertain a motion.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So last week there was a variance, I believe, for parking on that side of town. And several business owners got up in support of that parking variance, saying that there just isn't enough liveliness and things happening on that side of town. So I guess I'm wondering, what is the concern in that parking on Grand? Is that, I mean, is that a going concern, or is that just something that we have a regulation for that we are potentially open to? Like, do we regularly grant variances for these types of things since parking doesn't seem to be an issue, or is it an issue?
It's always been an issue. There used to be a parking fund that businesses would have to pay into, and it would help the town supposedly like develop space. and stuff like that.
This-
Yeah, paving the lot here, who knows, maybe it would be striping, coming up with new spaces, because there's a cost to that. That, it was always very contentious, it was not always fairly enforced. But then, there's been talk about putting paid parking downtown and parking meters. Parking has been an issue for quite a while. And it's something that I'm understanding the board's gonna be looking at fairly soon. Was that, yeah, but different types of businesses, there are different parking requirements generated for the different types of businesses. And, so comprehensively, it's going to be important to look at that business and see what their needs are, see what the space they have is. But parking is an issue.
Madam Chair, if I can
Go ahead.
go further on that. So you've heard from one business owner tonight who has a business on Grand that has normal hours of operation. What you haven't heard are the emails that we've received as staff, and I think some of our elected officials have received from other business owners who are afraid to say anything for fear of retaliation or people just not wanting to patronize their shops anymore. And so, there is a bigger conversation that needs to happen around parking. But this specific issue is a little bit different because it's a use that is being currently utilized that has never been approved, that by our zoning code needs to be discussed and needs to be considered as a special review.
And is that there, there was a commercial shop there prior to the zoning council, two commercial shops. So how does that, why does that shift? Why does that change?
So Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So as the use has changed. And so while it might be, those two shops made like Ollie's Ice Cream Shop was allowed by right, it's a restaurant. And the parking regulations concerning that say, hey, for every 4 seats, you have to have 1 off-street parking space. I think they had 8 seats or something inside. And so they had these, they had 2 off-street parking spaces. They were located in the back of the building. Actually, I think they had a few more, but in the back of the building. I don't know what the hearth used to be prior to what they're trying to turn it into, but they're turning it into an assembly space. And so that assembly space not only has different building code regulations with it, but it also has certain criteria for like maximum occupancy. And so if they're saying that their maximum occupancy is 200 people, well, there's a formula that we go by for that. The thing that we go for any sort of parking considerations, what would be required is based on their maximum occupancy. So if it is 200, that's what it base it off of. And so that formula is located within the code. But it's different because it's a completely different type of use that specifically requires a special review on our code.
Yeah, there's go ahead.
Oh, you haven't gotten this from
He's got it.
Sandra. Oh, you haven't? Yeah, the whole code's in there to look at. There are 2 things I wanted to bring up. My first question is, if they're gonna have 200 people, has the fire marshal allowed 200 people in that south part of that building?
It's
I mean,
the building
I don't know.
inspector.
Yeah,
Or
I mean,
the town administrator.
well, I
It
don't,
would be
they
a fire
don't,
marshal, it'd be a fire code. So
right, but they don't have a condition, they don't have a CO for that south half of the building. Is that correct?
all of this would be
Discuss.
Later, okay.
with a special review.
Okay, and then what I wanted to say about parking is, one of the biggest issues is people parking all day long on Grand that work in those places, and which takes up spaces for people to shop. It's really a Monday through Saturday, 8 to 5 issue. So and that's gonna be coming before us at some upcoming for the trustees. So that's really the issue. I mean, it seems to me that when the Blue Sage has a movie, it's at night. So everybody can park on Main Street and nobody's upset because all the stores are closed.
Except you can't get to the town board meeting.
Yeah.
It looks like there's a lot of.
Okay, Lynn, were you?
I guess the one thing I think going forward, if we're talking about multimodality, a lot of towns are eliminating all parking requirements. Just that is just to be able to promote infill. So here we have like a community-centered nonprofit that's providing movement for seniors, ice cream for kids, public learning spaces. Like, it's a very valuable institution in town.
It's
And a
in,
lot of people are ride their bikes there.
it's in the commercial core though, and that's
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
thing, it's zoned commercial, which means shopping, which means tax dollars that comes back to the town. So having like nonprofits and these kind of entertainment venues in the commercial core, it starts, and living units, whatever. If it's not planned very carefully, it starts taking away from the business and the tax base that this town needs. And I know in the age of the internet, might be a little different, but we have a code right now, and the code has certain requirements, and that's what we're bound to follow. And, that can be changed with time, land use code. But I guess my understanding is this is what we are kind of bound by right now, and there's a process and procedure that we have to follow. So, I don't know.
I guess I'm just trying to balance that with
It might come back to us.
the only other,
Yeah.
I'm very new to this,
Yeah.
but last week I heard it was like, we need a variance, and it was like, the Red Sea opened and the variance was granted, and it made sense. It made
Yeah.
perfect sense to me because it's very dead on that side of town, and it's gonna provide, more. I've yet to have a problem. I mean, I'm from a big city, so.
But when you're doing these hearings and the land use things, there has to be like specific protocol or, that we're following, because based on, and I think we make the mistake of that a lot of times, and I don't know if presenters always understand, but when they say, I feel this is a great use for this, that's not, land use decisions are legally binding, and you can get in trouble. It's in state statute. A town can get sued over something. So there has to be specific criteria that we're following based on the specific laws that we have, and it can't be subjective. So that's what I think. That's my understanding, that we have to be very careful. Okay, Bill, or did Lynn have a?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that this all coming up, it really, to me, says we really need to create a green parking plan. And whether there's conceptual or you have people like the bank where they're not using the parking, if we can have a contractual agreement, there's all kinds of things that can be done in the future. But I agree right now for this, we don't have that. But I think it's very critical in order, we talk about the economy of the downtown and growing the downtown. We don't want to see what's happening in Hotchkiss where businesses come and go because of the parking. So I think it's really imperative that in the future and the very near future, we look at how do we resolve this parking issue. It needs to be resolved, and there are ways to do it. There are plenty of, on the internet, examples of bigger towns that have come up with green solutions. So
I would just throw out there that most of the solutions that they're eliminating parking requirements in big and small cities across the board
Right, but
to
there
create
are-
more infill and more density.
And what's happening though is they're actually going away from that status quo, which is in our quote or our code, where X amount of seating or whatever, you have this many parking spaces. They're seeing that doesn't work, so they're doing away with it and finding other creative solutions. So I just want to make the comment that I think, we need to put our heads together and come up with creative solutions if we want to, maintain the economic aspect of this town.
So for now, Bill, did you have a?
So just kind of to your comment, what it comes down to for trying to follow the law is that land use regulations are regulating the private use of private property. And that's been deemed appropriate if it's done in a fair and even manner. And, last week, the Red Sea parted for a variance there. And actually, I questioned the propriety of the way that was done. And as far as this particular one goes, I'm prepared to make a motion to deny this. It's just not, it's incomplete. And just as a general comment, until somebody figures out something else, and I have some ideas too, but I don't think anybody's gonna, I can't imagine how I can appropriately recommend allowing someone to increase their use while they decrease parking they've already got. So on that basis, I move that we deny, my motion is that we deny this request because number one, it's incomplete. And number two, they haven't explained to me how it's appropriate that they increase their use and decrease their parking.
This would be the way to get that.
The remand?
Yes.
No, I'm not remanding it. My motion is to deny.
So you're saying, you're suggesting that they don't even get to come back for a special review?
They can always come back for a special review, and that's what they need to apply for. I think that.
So, okay, make a motion.
It's really screwed up. I believe that this is kind of the root, one of the roots of the problem. This says special review variance application. Special review and variance don't go to the same organization. Special review goes to the board, variance goes to the Board of Appeals.
Board of Adjustment.
Board of Adjustment,
Commission,
okay, yeah,
Okay,
and not the planning commission.
Yeah.
So I just don't
So,
think it's in the right place.
so you've made a motion.
I have.
Do we have a second? Okay, that motion dies for lack of a second. Does anybody else have?
I'd like to make a motion. Remand back to the staff for further consideration as a special review for use of the hearth as community recreational.
So we're not talking about parking at this point.
No,
You're just sending it back to the staff.
for a whole new look.
Okay, do I have a second? A second. Okay, any discussion on that motion?
Yeah.
Okay, Bill?
So as the staff that's going to carry this load, is that is that what you want to see?
Yeah, I think the most appropriate thing is for this to go back to a special review because it is a special use. So I agree.
It's not my question.
I agree with you on that form. The form predates me. It's a mess. And it should say, there should be a special use review. That's the actual wording. It's a special use review, not just a special review. And then also a form for variances, or in normal planning terms, it's called a special exception, and not a variance. So, but yes, as far as coming back to us, that would be the most appropriate way. So I can take their $250 and make it a credit for the actual $500 fee for a special use review.
Because that's my question is.
So
my question is, this motion gives you more workload. You're happy with that? Do you have time for that? I mean, I'm serious. Do you have time for that extra workload?
it's my job. So,
That's not the question. Do you have time for this extra workload?
the answer is, if I say yes, it's putting it, okay. As a town administrator, I'm also the community development director, essentially. So I'm wearing multiple hats. With this, there would be a whole new noticing period. Given that it won't come back until maybe June or July, that's plenty of time. And so, yeah, they're going to continue to operate the way they are because the town did it. This is still public hearing. The town did err years ago in granting a building permit without a special use review.
Really?
Yeah, and so now we're trying to fix this as best as we can. And the best way forward is by, having them go to a special use review, but not closing them down. If we close them down, then we run the risk of increasing liability for the town, and it's something we may not prevail.
I think they could just come back and apply again in a more appropriate manner. But
my concern is that that $250 that they've already put towards this would be lost, and that they are a nonprofit.
I think we can fix that. Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on that? Anything from the public? No, the public doesn't get to comment on this, do they? No, okay. Let's have a vote. Let's have a roll call vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 It's unanimous.
Unanimous. Okay, the motion carries. And, I didn't close the public hearing before we made that motion, did I?
Yeah, you gaveled.
Yes.
You gaveled.
You did, you did.
It's bigger.
So my head.
So, can we adjourn?
Yes, that's adjourned.
Motion.
Okay.
It's always in order.
Okay,
Much fun.
I thought this would be a great meeting. Duh,
I knew it was.
you did, didn't you?
I did, I know.
But no, this is good. It was good to get the comprehensive plan. So no,
It's kind of.
yeah.
So we will have something that's more like what we're actually talking about to review.
Yeah, that's the plan. After, it is what it is. They, I don't know why they came in for variance. I don't know why they did that. But after I started reviewing it, it went, this is,
I was referring to the master plan.
Oh,
I was going back to the,
yeah, we had two.
Because I mean, we need
conundrums.
something with time to look at.
yeah.
That's actually what we're talking about.
Okay, what was your question?
Now, we'll have something to look at for the.
Oh, yeah, I
When
wouldn't.
we get something that's actually in the format that we, kind of like what we're going to approve or not.
I wouldn't be